Courtney. Welcome to Thursday Thrive. This is a series featuring people who have overcome adversity. If you want to know more about what it means to thrive or to see more stories, then check us out at edmondco.co. I hope you enjoy this story.
Hey, I'm Caroline Hobby, and this is my story. I grew up in a very wonderful family. I have two really supportive parents. I have an older sister who's awesome. I have a very large extended family, and everyone's very supportive and loving. I grew up in a small town, and the community was loving. Everything was great. Like, on the outside, it was really great. I don't know where I came up with this movie reel that I repeated in my life, and that I repeated constantly as my standard of how life needs to be until I was about 28. I don't know where I came up with it. I think it was probably a combo of sort of being from a small town, sort of having an expectation of being perfect. That was just sort of a energy that was floating around my life growing up, that you sort of just need to figure out how to be perfect. And I don't know if I just made that up or if it was a combination of feeling it from my atmosphere and what. But I just put this insane amount of pressure on myself to be perfect. That was like the standard I had in my head, that like, okay, you need to always look really good and you need to present yourself as everything's really perfect, and don't really like talk about what's going on inside, what struggles I'm dealing with internally. Just as long as it's all looking okay, then we're okay, you know? So I grew up with a lot of internalized conflict because I was very much insecure and very, I didn't know how to be perfect, and yet I knew I had to be. For whatever reason, in my mind, I had to be. And so I started just trying to get shortcuts to be perfect. And I started eating disorders when I was in high school, like 9th grade. Started with diet pills because one of my best friends started doing Metabolife, and she lost like 20 pounds and she looked so skinny. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do diet pills. And so then I started doing diet pills. Those didn't really work. Metabolife didn't, at least. They were not near strong enough. And then I moved to bulimia when I was like a little later in high school. And I was never like a huge bulimic person, like addicted to the point I needed like help. But for about 4 or 5 years, I would definitely experiment with bulimia. Like I wouldn't do it every day, but I would binge on like one day, and then I would just try to throw it all up. And it was an exhausting process, and I was the heaviest I ever was when I was bulimic. I was the most unhappy. I was the most trapped in my mind, and it didn't work. It was completely unfulfilling. It made me feel so ugly and so worthless and so incapable of, it made me feel so, I would just say, I guess, not worthy. Like, I just didn't feel like I deserved anything because I had this big secret and this big lie that, like, I can't be perfect on my own. I'm having to hurt myself to be perfect, like with diet pills and bulimia. And so I felt that it just wore on my soul, because, like, maybe to the outside world, they thought I was looking good or feeling, or, you know, a good image. But inside, I'm like, you have no idea what I'm doing and how, like, insecure I feel inside. And so that was like a complex, because you feel like you're a fraud, and you feel like, you know, like you just don't feel worthy. So then I moved to Nashville out of college, and I stopped being bulimic after college, and then I transferred that over to prescription diet pills, and I really got it heavily involved with phentermine, which is really bad for your heart. And I would, instead of throwing up, I would still binge. I would have like a day where I would like binge, and then I would have like the next week where I would just punish myself, and I'd be like, okay, you have to just work out every day and don't eat and take diet pills every day. And so it was just like this constant cycle, and it controlled my life. And literally, like, every thought, at least every other thought, came back to food and eating, and like I didn't know how to eat correctly, and I was like, I wasn't eating whole foods, and I was like kind of binging, and like everything, I didn't do anything for nutritional value. It was all for how the outside looks. So then I got in the entertainment industry, and I was a singer in a trio called Stealing Angels, and that's when I really stepped up my, like, I would weigh myself like every day, like 3 times a day, I would travel with a scale. And if it was like 2.2 less than like the day before, I'd freak out and like run an extra mile, and it was just exhausting. I mean, I had fun in my life during this, but it was like always controlled by, how do you look? Are you perfect? That was the thought that was going through my head. I did feel fulfilled though, because I achieved a record deal with Stealing Angels, and that was something I always wanted to do as a kid. I wanted to have a record deal, and I was able to achieve that with Stealing Angels. And it kind of lifted the veil for fame to me, like, and I got to like open up for a lot of superstars. We were on a tour bus for 3 years, and I realized that was a really pivotal time of my life, because I realized, oh, I met famous people, and I was like, they still have a lot of problems too. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't want to live that life. And wow, I thought that they were perfect. And there's a whole bag of problems with them in their life as well. And it was like very much an eye-opening experience for me, because I've been chasing this perfect thing for so long that, like, celebrities who are perfect, I could start seeing that they weren't perfect. Like, I got to travel the country, and I got to fulfill a childhood dream of like achieving a record deal. And the veil of fame was lifted. So Stealing Angels was a huge blessing in my life. Even though I was so obsessed with looking perfect and trying to present myself as perfect, I was also learning stuff at the same time. So it was a really good growth period for me. And then Stealing Angels fell apart. One of our trio members, Taylor, got unexpectedly pregnant, and she is so happy and married now, and everything worked out for the better. But she got pregnant, and she moved to Seattle, because that's where her baby daddy was. And so she moved there, and the band fell apart. And this is kind of what I had been doing for the past 7 years. I had put everything into this. I was 28 now, and I just thought like life was over. Like, I literally, in my world, it was over. Like, I just couldn't imagine anything else ever happening for me. I couldn't imagine like anything coming from this, coming from this. I had spent so much of my life like pursuing this, and now like in one day to the next, it literally, we lost our record deal. Taylor moved to Seattle, and Jen and I were just like stuck with nothing. We had nothing going on anymore. And I had these visions of like superstardom, and like, you know, that was going to fulfill all my life and make me happy. And I was going to finally get to the fame, even though the veil of fame had started to be lifted. That's when I picked up everything, broke up with my boyfriend, who I've now married. We broke up for 2 years. And I left Nashville because I had no record deal. I had nothing keeping me here. Obviously, I had my boyfriend, but like my world was closing in so much, because I was finally at the breaking point where I could not run from myself anymore. Like, I could not run from myself anymore, and there was no career to run into. There was no, like, my boyfriend at the time, like, he didn't fit my perfect image of what, you know, like what a perfect life is supposed to look like, because he was still trying to make it in the music industry. And like, I just had all of these fears and all of these insecurities, and then they all just hit me all at once. And I literally thought if I stayed in Nashville for one more second, I was going to explode. And so I packed up all my stuff, put it in a U-Haul, called my boyfriend, told him I was breaking up with him, and not just breaking up with him, but I am in a U-Haul on my way to Austin. I mean, I was crazy. Like, that's crazy. Like, I was that, the moment had gotten so big for me that I literally couldn't breathe. I couldn't survive in myself anymore, that I just had to get out. And I had to like literally get away from everything and just like get away. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know what life was going to look like, but that's when I drove to Austin, and I was going to go get a perfect life. I was going to go find it, because it wasn't in Nashville, because it all just fell apart. And so now I'm going to just go the other route. Since I'm not going to be a star, because here's my one chance that fell through, I'm going to go to Austin and maybe just get a white picket fence and just settle down and just have a really safe, perfect life, because perfect was still the goal. I got to Austin, and I started realizing that perfect is not real, and all the people in Austin are great, but I really love creative people, and there's a lot of creative people, but I love the music industry. That's where I thrive. I love people who are chasing dreams like that. And so I would start kind of hanging around like doctors and lawyers and dentists, and I was so bored. And I appreciate them and I love that career field, but I was like, I cannot live like this. I've got to be with crazy people, the dreamers, the ones who are like throwing splatter paint on the walls. Like, that's when I realized, like, I would rather just have everything fall apart and still be in that creative world than try to just get this really perfectly safe life for myself. And at that same time, once I had moved to Austin, about 3 months after I was there, in the height of this breakdown, like literally boyfriend back in Nashville, nothing going on in Austin, me kind of freaking out about what is going to happen next with life because I think it's over. I get a call from my agent, and he basically said, do you and Jen want to do The Amazing Race? They're looking for 2 country singers. How random is that? I'd never even seen The Amazing Race, and they were specifically looking for 2 country singers. He's like, okay, if you can get it together, it starts in a month. And we didn't even have to like really try out. We made a video, and then a month later they said, you're in. And we went on The Amazing Race, and I ended up racing around the world, and then we went back for All Stars. And that's when I realized, like, God has a plan. Even though I had this plan that I was going to do, it was going to be Stealing Angels, and it was going to be this way, I realized then that when things fall apart, something better will come, because this life is not meant to be wasted, and God doesn't want anyone to waste their life. And so that was the first time I survived a massive like failure or a massive like breakdown or a massive something ending that I had put everything into, and realizing that my life wasn't actually over. Like, there was something even better that I couldn't have even imagined on the other side, but I couldn't have planned for that. That was in the bigger plan. So that's when I started to like not have so much fear in life. I think I was very fearful before. That's the first time my fear started chipping away. I started having a little more faith. After Amazing Race happened, we went back for All Stars, and we ended up getting second place. We almost won $1 million. We lost by 4 seconds. It was crazy, and it was so fun. But I kind of like, now I was at another wall. It's like, okay, here is this, now this chapter of my life is over. So what am I going to do now? And I had wrote down that I wanted to have a creative, interesting, stimulating job that uses my people skills and music knowledge. Had no idea what that was, how I would get that, how to move forward in finding it. And so after Amazing Race All Stars, or after Amazing Race the first time, I went up to Nashville, and I was hanging out with Jen because we were having like a viewing party. And I was at a bar, and I saw this man who I had known for 10 years in the music industry. I always really liked him. His name was Cliff. And he walked right up to me, and he was like, I have been looking for you, and I want to offer you a job. Can you meet me at my office tomorrow? And I was like, yeah, because I was like, once again, here I'm at this crossroads. I have no plan next. I have no next move. All I know is where I want to go, and I had even written it down, but I didn't know how I was going to get there. And he said, I want to offer you a job as a song plugger. And he was going to pay me more money than I've ever been paid, give me full benefits, and the job is a creative, interesting, stimulating job that uses my people skills and music knowledge. I basically go around and pitch songs from songwriters who were writing at the company to A&R people, record label, management, label heads, artists, like everyone in the music industry. So I got to be a social butterfly, go to all the fun events, like use my music knowledge, use my people skills, and pitch songs. And I was like, okay. So that was the second time that I had really experienced magic in my life, I guess. And I started to buy more into this whole trusting the process and surrendering process. It really started to click. And so he asked me to move back to Nashville. So I had 1 month to move back to Nashville. So I lived in Austin for a year, did Amazing Race in that year, and then moved back to Nashville. And it was just so divine, and it was such an easy flow. And even though it was kind of like a mess, it was so effortless. Like Stealing Angels flowing into Amazing Race, flowing into me getting a song plugging job. It just sort of was flowing. And I started to notice that it was flowing, and it wasn't anything I was doing, which was very new for me, because before I was the one always pursuing, always pushing. Even when I hit a wall, I would still try to push through that wall. Even when I got that resistance, when you felt like it wasn't right, I would still push through, because I'm like, no, this is how it has to be, because this is my image in my head. And I started to trust the flow. Amazing Race really taught me that I love using my personality for my job, and then song plugging and only enhanced that I really liked using my personality. That's when I felt most alive, was when I was connecting with people with my personality. And because I really love to be honest, and I love to have honest conversations, and I like to inspire people with life, with like their life and my life, and I just liked the connection of personality. And so that's when I really started identifying that I love TV, I loved using my personality, and I kind of wanted to move into that realm of like hosting, interviewing, and leaving music behind, not pursuing singing anymore. At the same time, I've been song plugging now for 2 years. I'm in Nashville. I'd gotten back together with my ex-boyfriend because I had always loved him. He just didn't fit the perfect mold that I had in my head that was completely not true. It was all my insecurities and my lack of self-worth. We ended up eloping 4 months after we got back together because we knew we were in love with each other, and now I had healed and he had done his own healing too. We both needed to grow, so it was actually a great break that we had, a 2-year break, and we got back together, and it has just been like the best relationship because it's now 2 whole people instead of 2 broken people. That self-discovery was so crucial for both of us, and like now I realize more than ever, you need to be whole before you get married, because if you're trying to have someone fill that void for you, your marriage is not going to work. And I'm so thankful we didn't get married the first round, because we would probably be divorced, like honestly, or just very much conflicted all the time. And so we got married, and at the same time, I got offered a major label record deal, which I had been wanting since I was like 19. That's why I moved to Nashville, and now I'm 32. So I tried really hard to make it work for about 8 months, 6 months, 8 months. And I hated it. It was going against the growth that I had been trying to pursue of my soul, which was following the flow and following like where I felt most alive. All of a sudden I'm in this role where I can't sing low harmonies. I can't hear them. I hate singing them. I think they're a beautiful part to the song, but it is not a gift that God gave me. And I was like, why am I doing this when I don't have this gift? Like, it is not my talent. Like, I'm not good at it. I'm not thriving. When I had really started being so positive in my life because I had started really trusting and surrendering. And now all of a sudden I'm like this dark cloud because I hated what I was doing. I didn't feel like I was expressing myself. I didn't feel like it was my talent. And so I had a breakdown, and I hit a wall, and I left a major label deal, which I would have never done in my 20s, because fame, any way to fame, I would have taken any ride. Open the car door, I'm jumping in, even if I'm hanging out the window. Like, I would have taken any vehicle to get there. And I was 32 years old, and I was like, I'm not interested in that. That's not what I'm going for in my life anymore. Like, if it's not fulfilling to me, I don't want to do it. And that was a moment for me. That was last year, because I just turned 33 is what I'm calling it. And that was a moment I was like, I really have committed to my soul to leave a major label deal. I really have committed to fulfilling what I feel like is my calling. So I left the deal, had no job, no backup plan, no nothing, and I just knew I wanted to get into interviewing and hearing people's stories and hosting, and I didn't even know how to do it or what it looked like, but I just knew that's where I was inclined, using my personality to connect with people. So I started a podcast, Hyper Caroline Hobby, and I had just like literally, I left money, a gig, potential fame, to just start a podcast, which I didn't even know what podcasts were. I just knew I needed to start something, get content out there, and have some momentum going, because I never think you should wait for someone to hand you something. Even if stuff does come your way, like, you need to be providing your own momentum in the direction you want to go. So I started this podcast, and my first guest was Darius Rucker, from, former lead singer of Hootie and the Blowfish. Then it was Old Dominion. I interviewed my husband, 1,000 Horses. I've interviewed Jamie Lynn Spears, Kelly Pickler. I've interviewed so many people now, and all of them share their story. And I've interviewed huge industry executives. And they all share their story, and it has been just the most amazing, fulfilling thing for me in my life, because I now know what my life is for. Like, I went through all these insecurities and all of this hunt for self-worth and all of this process to finally getting to a place where I can surrender and trust, and now I get to help expose all of these people that I thought were so cool and that I thought were perfect, now I get to share with the world that they are amazing and they are incredible, but they're not perfect, and they're happy to tell you they're not perfect. And you can see that, like, they've had struggles, they've had trials and tribulations, they've continued to grow and move through them, and they've continued to, like, flourish and thrive, but it's not perfect. And, like, that is what I was looking for when I was younger, because I thought these people were, like, the answer, and if I could just get with these people, then I could be perfect. And now I'm, like, hanging with these people, interviewing them, but we're just talking about how not perfect we are. And it's like, it makes me want to cry. This is like an aha moment. I've never actually said this out. I've put this in words. That I've, like, achieved what I wanted, which was hanging out with the people I thought were the most interesting and important. But it's not because they're the most interesting and important. It's because they're inspiring, and, like, we can now use our lives and our words to inspire other people. Makes me want to cry. So it's really cool how it all has worked out. And it's not like, when I was younger, it was for fame, and it was for, like, validation, and it was for people to think I was awesome. And now I'm like, if I could just help one person find their calling and find their passion, and not, like, weigh themselves and care about how they look, and just feel good from the inside, and whatever that looks like on the outside is awesome as long as you feel good on the inside. If I could do that with my life or my podcast or however my voice is used, then that is my purpose, and that's fulfilling to me, and that's my goal. And I feel so thankful to be at this place in my life. And I'm so glad that I got here at 33, because even though it's not super young, I feel like a lot of people don't even find their purpose when they're older. And I feel like now, like, okay, I'm 33, and I can really just try to grow this thing and try to, like, use my life however I'm supposed to, and just inspire, because I just want to inspire people, because I was looking for inspiration when I was in the throes of it all. So that's really the point of it all. And it's like, I like to cuss, I like to be rowdy, I like to be real, but because I want to show people that I am real, that life is real, that these people I'm talking with are real. Like, it's not perfect. I think I'm so anti-perfect now. I'm, like, opposite of perfect. I want to prove on every level of everything I do that I'm not perfect, and I want to show you my flaws, and I want you to see them so you can feel good about yourself, because no one's perfect. Honestly, my husband has been a huge blessing, because we've gone through so much life together, and he is really the first person who has seen all of me, like, the very worst of the worst and the very best of the best, and he has completely loved me through it. And I think having that complete love has really it makes me cry. I'm in therapy. Thank you for this therapy session. Having someone see you, like all of you, is really freeing when they still love you. Pursue your soul. Pursue your soul, pursue your soul. And don't be worried if it's messy. Like, don't be scared of the mess, because it's going to be messy. But just pursue the calling of your soul. And if you ever hit that wall where you feel like you are going against your gut, you are. Like, listen to your gut, because that is God. And to me, the whole point of this life is to be in tune with God and that connection. And so pursue your soul, listen to your gut. When stuff just keeps hitting a wall, when you don't feel like it's right, no, it's probably not. And then go where you feel like you're supposed to go, because that is probably the road that God wants you to go on. And if you trust it and you're brave enough, you will be blessed. I think at the end of the day, you just have to love yourself and know that you're put here for a reason. We are all on this earth for a reason. Nobody is more important than anyone else. And whatever struggles you're born into, you are born into those for a reason, because you are meant to persevere. And because of those struggles, you are going to bless the world. But you have to fight through them. You have to get to the other side. And you have to reach the freedom. And once you get through them, you can't die in your struggle. You have to push through it, and then you can bless the world with them. And I think that is something that I have really learned, that it's so okay to have a messy past, and one that you're ashamed of, or one that you think is like ugly. Get through it, learn from it, grow from it, and then make it a blessing.